welcome to Book World of Great Escape. I'm author CJ Peterson. My co-host over here is author Michael Scott Clifton. Down below, we have author Auri Jones joining us today. We're going to be talking about fantasy fiction. We'll get to him in just a moment. Mike, how is your author world? What is going on?
Well, I have set a formatting date for my latest book, so now I've got to get it finished by then. So most, this will be my 10th published book. Actually 11, maybe even 12 if you count some anthologies that I've been part of. But the thing about, as I'm sure Ari and you as well both can appreciate, is there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of finally taking that last breath when you've finished a book. Now the part about finding the book cover, getting it formatted, is can be a challenge. The formatting, not so much, but trying to get a book cover is always interesting because you want one that'll obviously pop. But I've found also that the things I dislike the most, because I struggle so much with them, is the back cover summary, and of course the cursed tagline, which you have to have, condensing your.
As authors, I always hate the synopses. I always like that Gollum meme where it's always like, we don't like the synopses.
Well, it's always something that, it's like, so you have to condense your book into one, maybe two paragraphs at the end of your book, the back cover. And then, of course, that tagline, which is supposed to say it all. So I think I've been fortunate so far to sort of climb those hills, but I have never liked it. To be honest with you, that part I don't like, but it's essential. We all know that. So, and of course, the East Texas Comic Con, which of course, CJ, you are an important part of, will be coming up. July 18th and 19th in Longview, Texas. Yep. And I'm so fortunate and happy to be part of that again this year. And then in August, 3 different Comic Cons: the Bell County Comic Con, which is going to be August 1st and 2nd, and that's in Belton, Texas, and I'll be at the Greenville Library Author Fest, which is August the 15th. It's a Saturday. I will be one of 75, I believe, authors that will be part of that event. And then, of course, the Piney Woods Comic Con at the end of August. Again, an event that's in Lufkin that, CJ, you're an important part of as well. And that's also about the time of the formatting date of my latest book.
Fun. Yep, we have coming up with us on the Longview Comic Con, which will be in Longview, Texas. It's called the East Texas Comic Con. And that will be 17th, or actually, I gave you the actual dates, the 18th and 19th of July. I'm looking forward to that. As you guys know, we usually dress up on the Sunday. So I may do my Star Wars. So we'll see. Since that one's my latest and greatest cosplay. So we'll see what happens with that one. And then on get the exact date on that one, the 29th and 30th down in Lufkin, Texas, is the Piney Woods Comic Con. Some guests have been announced for the Piney Woods. All the guests have been announced for the East Texas Comic Con. You can look that up at easttexascomiccon.com for the Longview one, and the one for Lufkin is pineywoodscomiccon.com. Like I said, some of the guests have been announced for the Piney Woods. All of them have been announced for the Longview Comic Con, and that's going to be the East Texas Comic Con. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to tons of fun. Like I said, Mike will be joining me for both of those. The book that I have coming out, I kind of do things backwards. I start with the cover, or it comes to me within the first few chapters. That's my inspiration usually for the book. It comes to me either within the first few chapters, or I usually start with it. Or at least the first, I usually get my characters definitely from it. So that book is almost done. That's the anthology that I did with the group of young people that I taught at the Christian Writers Conference in Pennsylvania. And that Christian Writers Conference will be coming on in Pennsylvania in the next week or two. And so the proceeds from that book will be going to a scholarship. So I'm pretty excited about that one. But that book is almost and ready for publication soon. So as that goes out as a fantasy novel, and it is about dragons. So I'm super excited about that one. Once that book launches, then the book that I wrote, the fantasy novel series that I wrote, the trilogy that has my Magic Making Mischief sisters and their hubbies characters with me and Super Hubby as well. That trilogy is almost done as well, and that will be launching probably in the spring. But I want that one to stagger launch pretty close together. So I'm super excited about that as well. So that's what's coming up in my author world. But today we have Auri Jones joining us, and Auri is not just a fantasy fiction author. He is also a rapper and a content creator, and we'll get to the second two parts later, which we will definitely get to because I want to talk about those too. That is unique, and I love that part. But I want to talk about first about the fantasy fiction part. Miren, I believe, is the book, but I would like to know our first question. A lot of questions that we asked about our guests is what makes your fantasy fiction different than others in your genre?
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be on here. And Myron is definitely one of my favorite, just like, I wouldn't even say just hobbies, just like a pastime, anything like that. No, what makes it different than any fantasy book, I would say, is just really the characters. The characters that I created with Myron were specifically like crafted from people that I was able to see in real life, be able to connect with, and kind of like mold their characters into a specific journey. So the people that have read it have told me like, you know what, this speaks to me. This character speaks to me. And I do that because I don't have just one main character, right? There's probably a good 6 or 7 main characters that you can relate to, that no matter where you are in the book, like you don't feel cheated, like, oh, I'm missing out on this character, I'm missing out on this part of the story. You truly do feel like you are engrossed in the story and you still can connect with a character no matter what area of life you're in, no matter what your journey is in. You're going to find something in this book that connects with you and a character in this book that connects with you. And you're going to be able to find that you're getting an in-depth look at that character. And that's one of the things that I love to work with when I'm writing, is that I want my audience to immediately find someone to connect to and be able to go on this journey with them, and not feel like this is just a book. This is an actual, like, what I like to call a reality novel versus a fantasy novel.
Well, Myra and the Prophecy of the Floor, which is what we have the picture up on the front, is very mysterious looking. Can you describe a little bit about the book? Kind of put us in there because the cover is very mysterious looking. Where'd you come up with it? Kind of give us a basis of the book without giving away too much.
Yes. So one of the things that I wanted to do with the cover was portray the fact that this book, while follows somewhat similar lines of like the good versus evil aspect, it truly gives a perspective of the gray area of good versus evil. So you're going to find characters in there that you know are inherently like, these are the bad guys, but you're going to find that you're going to relate to them, or you're going to sympathize with them, or you're going to understand where they're coming from. Vice versa, the same thing with the good guys. You're going to be like, these are definitely the good guys in the story, but you're going to get frustrated with them. You're going to see them make choices and understand that, like, hey, there's some darkness, there's some struggles, there's some stuff in there as well too. And so I think a lot of times, I've read books, I've watched things, I know we all have, where we've kind of just had like, okay, it's good versus evil, boom, good's gonna win. In Myron, I specifically wanted to give the perspective of like, there is good versus evil, but this journey isn't about one beating the other. This journey is about realizing that there's both in life, and there's both in your life, and there's both that you have to kind of like struggle with and journey with and understand. And so that was the biggest idea with Miren. And then also the aspect of just like calling and somewhat imposter syndrome is kind of thrown in there too, because I believe that a lot of times we have a picture of like the hero being either kind of like the, I don't know, like the one extreme or the other, right? We see extremes, and the main character, or one of the main characters that you will find in this, is very much your plain norm, what I call like the normally forgotten, and they are just like you will hear it described like there's nothing specifically standard about them that's going to like stand out, but this is the person who, even though it feels that way, is the one that's called, and being able to accept that calling. And I think a lot of times for us as human beings, realizing that we have a calling, we have a purpose, and sometimes there's something that kind of like tries to hold us back, like, no, I don't deserve this calling, deserve this purpose, or can fulfill this purpose, and we're called for a reason, right? So those are a couple of things that stand out, and what you're kind of seeing play in that cover as well.
It sounds like you tried really hard not to have cliched good and bad guys.
Definitely do not.
Well, it sounds very cool, and I totally agree with them.
Yeah, and it also sounds like you wanted to construct characters that readers could readily relate to, regardless of the setting or whether it's fantasy, whatever. And that's something I've tried to do, because after a while, you travel down the same road with the same kinds of characters, that are purely bad or purely evil. There's no gray areas, which doesn't sound like that's the case in your book. It does become cliche after a while, and not really realistic, even though you're talking about maybe a fantasy setting.
Yeah. And I'll say that one of the characters, if I could put it that way, or one of the aspects of this book that stands out, even in the gray areas, is the character of God in a sense. God is not directly put into the book, but you can definitely tell that there's aspects of God in there. And I think a lot of times that what I grew up with was there was a, hey, this is God, this is how you're supposed to view him, this is how you're supposed to perceive him, and don't stray from that. And I wanted to challenge my readers with a different perspective of God, a more personal, and probably one you can relate to a little bit more, but also one that you can be frustrated with a little bit more. And I feel like that's something that's not explored, is like, you know what, this character, however it may be, like, we can't just see him as like one thing, right? There has to be a different perspective that actually truly makes him real to us, or makes it real to us. So that's one of the things that I kind of explore with this book as well.
Very cool. Sarah is a first-time viewer, so we're saying hi to Sarah. I like the fact that your characters are actually real. So it's kind of like I was trying to explain to you earlier, the fact that I'm not your normal writer either. And so when you add that real element, we're kind of the same in the fact that, your characters trip, they fall flat on their face. It's not a, once saved, everything is, rainbows and glory. No, it's, what, you're real. Life is real. Things are going to get thrown at them. And it's not, I'm the hero and I'm going to take charge and, I've got this. It's, oh, crud, can I do this? Am I supposed to do this? And I love that. I think I love that perspective, because it's like, can I do this? Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do this? I like that. And I like that unique perspective, because it's like, we all have that little bit of imposter syndrome, especially as authors. It's like,
yes,
because we put our hearts out there. We bleed on the page. And it's like, we put our hearts out in this book, and it's like, please don't squish my little heart. Please don't do this. And I like that's behind that. is there a sequel coming out on this?
Yes, this is the first of a trilogy, and I am in the throes of the second book. And so as I'm writing this, the Miren, the Prophecy of the Four, first book, is definitely more of that fantasy aspect, and adds a lot of the elements like the vivid, like descriptions and everything like that. You have a lot more of that. The second book is definitely becoming a little bit more dystopian. And it's on purpose because you have to kind of understand how it got to be so dark, and even different ways. And you get to see a little bit of that in the first book, but this is going to kind of reintroduce the first book in a whole different light. So you kind of get that perspective, which is going to lead into the third book as well. Okay. So I have plans of how it's going to happen. I tell people I don't know what's going to happen. I write without an ending in mind. As I'm writing, it's like I'm reading it. So people watch me in coffee shops and I'm typing and I'm like, oh my goodness, that actually happened. And people are like, you don't know what's happening? Like, no, like I'm experiencing this with the characters and the story because I want it to be real for me. If I'm getting excited about it and if I'm passionate about it and if I'm finding these little surprises and nuggets, hopefully my audience does as well.
Well, yeah, there's a couple different types of writers, and we joke with them, planners or pantsers. We're pantsers too. So
yes,
unrepentant pantsers.
Definitely, I'm poster child.
With you.
So, like we were talking about earlier, there's another aspect to your world, and that's music / rapper. Care to share a little bit about that?
Yes. So I've been doing music for a while, and it really kind of started. Well, I have a background in media production and writing, script writing, all of that, radio, TV. I was, for a season, teaching family life classes for middle school and high school and some of the public schools around Virginia and the area. And I started talking with some of the kids and started listening to some of the music they were listening to. And I was like, you know what? I want more positive music for you. And also kind of like music with a different perspective and music that can challenge, right? And so I was like, why not just try to make some? And I made some music for them and the kids started loving it, right? And so I was like, you know what? If I can just make some music to impact and also kind of make music that really had a message that I felt like, again, just like the books, just like the characters that people could relate to, why not? And so I started doing music. Goodness, I don't even know how to count anymore, how many years. But in that time, I've been able to travel around the U.S. and do shows. I've worked with multiple producers from Europe and Asia and all over North America. And I've gotten to experience a lot of that impact. And a lot of it has been just the mindset, if I can just impact one person, who knows what that person is going to go and out and do and who they're going to go out and impact. And so I love it. I love being able to write music, to perform. I don't get to perform as much now because I do have a family and 2 young kids and also a full-time job myself. But I still get to do a lot of creation with that and even work with a number of different authors, artists, producers, and it's a great connection.
Well, I was going to ask you about going back to your characters, because I think one of the challenges when you write in the fantasy genre, okay, is making coming up with characters, constructing characters that are believable, that a reader can relate to. And I think that's a problem with fantasy in general, because you hop right into a fantasy world, and the challenge for authors who write in the fantasy magical genres is being able to appeal to readers that wouldn't ordinarily read books like that. And I think part of the reason is because I don't know that fantasy authors in general, and I'm not speaking about anyone in particular, but just in general, don't spend as much time trying to construct believable characters. They're more interested in the world building aspect of it, which is an important part of fantasy. but without believable characters. Again, characters that the average person, average reader, I should say, could relate to. It does make it hard to expand readership. And it sounds like that's something that you have tried very hard in the characters you constructed, that someone who may have never read anything having to do with fantasy can pick up the book and immediately relate to the characters that you've put in your books.
Yeah, it's the setting for me. So when I'm really trying to focus on the world building, I like to write in nature. So I'll go out and I'll write in the garden, or I'll write in like somewhere like where there's nature around me. So it kind of can inspire that aspect. When I'm really trying to focus on the characters, I write where there's people. I write in coffee shops. I write in some public places so I can see people, so I can remind myself that I'm writing people for people. And so no matter what I have in the fantasy world, I still want to write people, because that, in the end of the day, that's who they're going to relate to.
Yeah, and they're everyday people, in everyday locations. The other question I was going to ask you, Auri, is you have a 3 or 4 book series planned.
Yes.
Of course, you're like CJ and I'm Repentant Pantsers. Okay, so we never know where that journey's going to end. So I know a lot of authors that struggle with series because when you're trying to market it and it's a multi-series, a multi-book series, readers are often reluctant to buy the first book or so because they don't know when the second, third, fourth, or one is going to end. In fact, I know some authors, and I know CJ does as well, that don't even release a series until they have finished every book in the series. They won't do it piecemeal. They'll do it all in one fell swoop. 4-book series, four books will be released when the series is finished. So have you thought about that, given any thought about that in terms of how you would market it, or how you would, you would go about, again, I guess say marketing your books when you're not really sure when you'll be finished, because again, your pants are like we are.
Yeah, I have actually. And I think the consensus that I came up with is I'm going to experiment. So with, because you got to kind of try whatever works. And even if it works, sometimes switching things up can kind of like really intrigue your audience as well. So for this one, I knew like, hey, I want to have a series out of this, but I also want to get some people really excited about it. And so I know people that like have read the first book, their immediate thing was like, I'm ready for number 2. And I'm like, okay, we'll start telling people about number 1 and get ready for number 2. And that kind of like builds up as well. I think the next series, I might actually do it like all at once, just to see what that looks like. And also, again, try to keep my audience intrigued because they don't know what's coming. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to think about. And I say for any author out there, like, experiment. Don't be afraid to, because you never know. Like, both could work in a wholly different impact. You never know.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing when it comes to series. I've learned with mine to release them probably within a few months of each other, because my readers, I usually leave mine on cliffhangers. So that's why I tend to release them every few months, because my readers know that, okay, I'm not going to get it, because otherwise I'm going to get very, very mad at my author.
Right.
I get the nasty emails, so I usually just release them every few months.
And we live in a binge watching society nowadays. So it's like, back in the day, we used to be able to like wait a little bit more. Now we're kind of like, you know what? If I can watch my TV show like all 5,000 seasons at once, I'd rather do that with my books too.
I try to do them like every other month. Like I said, but mine are like, they're cliffhangers at the end. So, or like, I think once a month, especially if they're cliffhangers, just because I don't want to be mean to my readers.
Yeah. And of course, you have series like Dresden Files, for example, that each story is a standalone.
Yeah.
It's a series.
But if it's a month down, then you're okay to give yourself some time between.
Yeah.
It just depends on how the book is written. So a question I have as well is regarding your handle, REPM516. What does that mean?
So it is something that I've had for a while, and it is kind of a reference to not only a Bible verse, but just like all of my creative endeavors is REP, which is represent, and then M5:16 references to the verse in Matthew 5:16, where it's
Okay.
let your light shine before men, so they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven, and that is that the whole aspect. And I think we were talking before, like my goal in any of my creations is to give a unique and hopefully thoughtful view of God,
Mhm.
right? And who He is, and how He can impact your life, and so that's where that handle comes in into play, and it kind of is like a reminder to me, like whenever I'm doing that, I'm not trying to preach at people, I'm not trying to like make anyone feel a sort of way. I want you to come away curious and like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Like I want that to be kind of like the message there.
I figured there was something unique about it, but that's why I was curious as to what it was. I like that because then you have people asking about it. So I think that's really cool. I think it's
It
great.
is.
Mike, do you have a question?
Well, I'm really impressed, Uri. I really am. It sounds like you've given this quite a bit of thought, and with your series, and um, we've interviewed a lot of authors over the last 4 or 5 years and stuff, and sometimes you can tell where they don't really have it all figured out yet, but it doesn't seem that you have that problem. So congratulations.
I'm still working. I'm glad I come across that way, but it's kind of like the whole writing thing. I'm still like, as we go along, like, wow, that actually worked, or this did. So,
Yeah, you worked.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. We have a few minutes left. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to get into writing fantasy fiction?
yes, right. That is my biggest thing. Like, don't question it. Just write. If there's something that's on your heart to write, if there's something that has been brewing for you to create, do it. Because, and I've said this before, I've said this on stages before. Like, again, if it impacts one person, right? You don't know if that one person is going to go and be the one that impacts millions.
Mhm.
And it's because you took the time to write, you took the time to create, you took the time to pour your heart out, that happened, right? You may not see the fruits of that specifically from you, but it may be from that one person that read it, or that one group, or that one aspiring like author as well, who's like, because I read your book, like I was inspired, and you have the next like Stephen King or whoever that comes out there. You have the ability to impact so much, and your story is meant to be read, it's meant to be heard. So take that little thought. I don't know if you've watched with the movie Luca on Disney, where it's like the little Bruno in your head. Like take it out and just do it. Just write it and enjoy it. Have fun with it and share it with the world.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You've been a treat today. We've enjoyed your time with us. So thank you, Ari, for joining us. You can check him out online. His link tree is REPM516. That's also his handle. He is on Facebook. He is on Instagram. He is on X, and he is on TikTok underneath that same handle, REPM516. Next week, you can join us. We'll be talking about who is your target audience. That's actually very important for an author to know and to figure out. So we're talking about how do you do it? How do you find it? Come join us next week at 4:00 p.m.